Well, we are here on a Sunday morning. Good morning to everyone. I'm Joe Cioffi, and he is Joe Rao. And welcome to our Sunday morning coffee with the Joes.
I got to tell you something, Joe. I've been watching television over the last few days, and I think we were the pioneers here because we've been doing this kind of stuff now for many months, and
Oh
now
God, yeah,
and now we're
years.
and that years, and now we're seeing the rest of the world kind of fall into play here and do basically what we've been doing all this time. And
Listen, back
I
in
want
the early 1980s, just to show you how innovative I was, back in the early 1980s, I was the first person that was putting chocolate chip cookies and chocolate chip cookie dough in ice cream. And I said, this really tastes good and we should market this.
right.
And I was told I should have realized that by being told by a long list of people that I was out of my mind, okay, that it was a good idea. And lo and behold, within about 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden you go to Haagen-Dazs and they're putting raw cookie dough into their ice cream, and then they stores started marking it. We should have trademarked this. We should. Well, I'm trademarked. I have a Joe Stradamus trademark, but we should have trademarked all this. So this way, anytime somebody did a live stream, we would get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right. Well, it's kind of something similar to that when I was a very young boy. And my grandfather or my uncle used to take me to Shea Stadium to watch the Mets. I think when I was like 13 or 12 years old, I got for my birthday, my grandmother got me a New York Met uniform, an actual New York Met uniform. And I used to wear that when I went to Shea Stadium. Now, of course, everybody at Shea Stadium back then, they said, "Oh, look at the cute. He's wearing his little league uniform." I was the only one who was doing that at the time. And now you go to a Yankee game, you go to a Met game. What do you see?
Oh
You
yeah,
see, you see people who are all decked out in their uniforms as well. And I'm saying to myself, I was the trendsetter all the way back then, 50 some odd years ago, doing that. And now everybody does it.
you
So
have to. You know what? You have to sometimes go with what's in your head when um, when you know something is right to go for it and take the risk. Hang on a
right.
second, because um, you know what, Joe? Why don't you do this? I'm going to. I'm trying to get a couple of additional people onto the live stream. So why don't you start on what's going on weather-wise locally? Then we'll expand to nationally, and I will interrupt you as soon as I know whether I've got a special guest.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's talk about the weather. I have to admit to all of you that I really didn't get a chance to look at everything. I mean, some of you may have been up for hours and have already perused many of the various models and even looked at the Weather Prediction Center maps. I've only had 20 minutes to do this because I figured, well, last night I want to give my computer a rest. So I had everything scanned for viruses and whatever, and then I just shut everything down here at the home office, and I only powered things back up about 20 minutes or so ago and got a glimpse of stuff. And from what I was able to see, if anything, whereas let's say a day or two ago, I was thinking that perhaps where I live here in Putnam Valley, I might be looking at maybe an inch or two of snow. Now it's looking more and more like if we do see any snow, it's going to be just a slight amount, that the colder air is not going to hang in quite as long. And if there are any accumulations, let's say beyond an inch or two, it would be mainly in the Hudson Valley, the lower Hudson Valley, north of the Interstate 84 corridor. Up there, let's say in parts of Ulster County, Sullivan County, Dutchess County, we might indeed be looking at 1 or 2 inches, and in the higher terrain areas, maybe 3 or 4. But I would say basically for much of Orange County, Rockland, Westchester, Putnam County, if there's any snow, and there will be snow, whatever happens will kick off or start off as snow because the column, the atmosphere at the start of precipitation will be certainly cold enough to support snowflakes. So initially there will be snow. You will look out your window when precipitation begins tomorrow morning. probably sometime in the mid or late morning hours, and it will be snowing. But it's not going to last very long because it'll be a wet, slushy kind of snow, and it will change over most everywhere to just plain rain by the afternoon. And I took a look at the FOOS information. This is the stuff that gives you specific statistics for various levels of the atmosphere in terms of humidity and in terms of temperature. And from what I was able to see, not only is it going to be warming up quickly during the course of the day tomorrow, but also we're looking at a rather potent surge of moisture. The NAM, the North American model, is suggesting we may get a vertical motion index of something like plus 43 tomorrow evening around 8 o'clock. That indicates a lot of lifting, and that also indicates that we could be looking at a spurt of moderate to even heavy rainfall during tomorrow afternoon and on into tomorrow evening. Haven't investigated the possibility of whether or not we might see with this surge of moisture and energy a bit of convection, maybe some lightning and thunder. But I did get a brief glimpse at the fernogenesis numbers, or the omega. And the NAM has a rather thickly clustered bunch of contours over the tri-state area toward the end of tomorrow. So that may indicate that we may indeed see a flash or two of lightning or a rumble of thunder before the end of the day tomorrow. And then after that, we get into a nice weather pattern, a nice day on Tuesday, and then we go back to some unsettled weather and more probably wet weather here for the middle of the week
Okay.
on Wednesday.
All right, hang on one second. I'm trying to get Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald on here.
Oh,
Um, we're going to try to see how we can do this. Uh,
star NBC Universal.
yeah, I was hoping that I could at the very least get. This is all sort of last minute planning on the fly. You know, this is just the way it is. Let me just tell everybody, by the way, I know that no one is getting notifications of these live streams. This is a YouTube issue because of what's going on with the coronavirus. They don't have people working in many of the different functions of Google and YouTube like this. So normally there are human beings that kind of help to facilitate along things like notifications. So everything is basically in the hands of bots. And unfortunately, one of the things that's happening is that no one is getting notifications regarding the YouTube live stream. So this is not me. Oh, we got something. Hang on. Okay, I got La Fitzgerald calling me. All right, Joe, you may go on hold here, so hang on a moment. Hey,
Hey there,
so
Joseph. How are you?
so Brian, listen, good. We got you working here. I'm gonna set up a group so that we can get you and Rayo together. So hang up, and I'll let you know in two shakes of a lamb's tail.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye. Okay. Now let me get back to Rayo. Okay, Joe, you're back with me. So
Okay.
here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set up a group chat, okay,
Okay.
with you and Brian. So hang up, and we're gonna use this tomorrow when we get Captain Kirk on.
Okay.
So hang up. Let me set up the group chat. You'll probably get a notification that you're part of a group. All right. So
Good.
everybody at home, just kind of bear with me here. I know it's a little bit. We're doing stuff on the fly, but this is the new world that we live in. Um, so hang on. I'm going to create a group. Let's see. Uh, okay. Invite more people. Brian Fitzgerald. Done. Okay. Uh, All right, so we're ringing up the group here. So hopefully they'll all answer. Isn't technology wonderful? Okay, I hear audio. Who's this? Oh,
Hello, hello.
I have
Yeah.
Terrence Cardinal Fitzgerald. Now, who I haven't seen or talked to in a while. So it's good to see that you're home with your three little ones. And
I am, yeah,
yes,
home with the
so it's
boys.
good to see that you are among the land of the living. Now let's see.
Yeah.
I got Rayo in here somewhere.
All
Here,
right.
am I?
We hear you. I'm just trying to figure out how I get your. I got Brian's. Um, I got Brian on camera. Is your
I
camera turned
see.
on?
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Uh,
Oh, good. Look at this. Is so
Ta-da!
exciting. We've got a
Ta-da!
hold on. We got a potential 3 box here.
I saw somebody else.
Somebody else calling in.
I saw another familiar name.
Well, I put a whole bunch of people on here, so far we got a 3 box. All right, hang. You're
I'm on.
hearing? I'm not hearing it on my end.
I'm
Oh,
hearing.
here comes
Oh,
Jeffrey.
oh, there's Jeffrey.
It's Mr. Banson.
I can only stay for a little bit. We're in a Cuomo presser right now, so you can thank Cuomo for me being able to join.
You know, little by little, we're turning. I'm turning this into a Brady Bunch situation here because now we got a 4 boxes. I got Brian here. We got Jeffrey. Wait, I'm doing this wrong. I got Jeffrey here. We got Rayo up there. Okay, so look, let's. Okay, so this is my show. All right, so I'm going to start. Let's start with Brian. So Brian, you're up in Dutchess County. You're up in Dutchess County, and this is the new world now. Everybody's working from home. So how is it holding up for you?
Things are going good. I've been doing some freelance and part-time work for NBC News, so I'm doing support tonight for nightly news, and we're all set up at home. So I've got my setup here at the house, kind of preliminary weather center, printers, computers. I even have some tropical plants in the office here.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of learning to find themselves as a new normal. What do you think? This is basically the first snowfall for inland areas anyway that we've had that we're going to have in the last couple of months. And it's funny because today I think is the anniversary of the fourth nor'easter 2 years ago that I got 20 inches out of and didn't get to see because I was stuck up in Westchester County. But what do you think? What are your ideas tonight? You also, since you work the national show, so you're looking at weather nationwide. What do you think is going on? And I got maps that I can bring up full screen if you need to. So just let me know.
Yeah, true. Well, no doubt about it. But a focus of ours is this storm in the Northeast. It's probably the primary focus leading into tomorrow. And so this particular storm system, I find the whole situation interesting when you look at New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, from November through today, 20 plus inches of snow below average. Philadelphia had record low snowfall. I think it is their record for the lowest amount of snowfall
Really?
ever, in the season. And Boston close to their warmest ever. I think like second warmest on record for Boston. So it has been a bizarre season to say the least.
Come help with command strips.
This storm, I don't think, is really much different when we look at how this winter has gone for us. I mean, yeah, maybe some onset snow in some of the coastal cities early tomorrow morning, but it doesn't stick. And then inland areas, besides the high elevations, it's what we would call a nuisance storm.
I think we need the nails.
Correct. I put up the map up of the U.S.
I mean, yeah, maybe some
Is that how you want it?
onset snow in some of the cold. Oh yeah, I see that. So yeah, I've got your live feed up here, but it doesn't stay. And of course,
Hang on, hold on, guys, hold on, hang on. Somebody's got audio up there, so you got to shut your audio off.
Call a nuisance storm,
Oh, sorry. Is that me?
Correct. I put up the map up
guys.
of the U.S.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Lana.
It's Nutrisystems for a limited time.
Okay, we're really losing it here. Hang on one second. I'm trying to help. Hang on, hold on, guys. Hold on, hang on. Somebody's got audio up there, so you got to shut your audio off.
Call a nuisance storm,
Oh, sorry. Is that me?
Correct. I put up.
I'm here.
Okay, we finally resolved that issue. I was the one who had the audio up. I'm trying to help somebody who has did not get a notification, so of the video. So that was my fault. Now hang on one second. I got to straighten out a couple of other things here, everybody. Okay, so I got the 4-box back. Okay. I'm also, directing all of this, technical directing all of this. So just bear with me, everybody. I got, so there's Jeffrey. Okay, so Jeffrey, you're out in the, you're at home and we're watching you put makeup on, either that or you're getting all the dust off. So, So, you look fabulous, by the way. So, what? This has kind of been a for the four of us. Okay, for the four of us, this has been kind of a very surreal experience. Being that we're all basically coming from our houses.
Right.
Jeffrey, you're in there working on the air. So what are your impressions of all of this?
Something that maybe we will never see again, I hope. If we can learn from this and handle it the right way. It's just bizarre. It's so weird that every facet of life, whether you get it, whether you don't get it, whether you know someone that gets it, things are different. Things are getting canceled. It's wild. It really is.
Well, you've all seen the various conspiracy theories going around. Anybody have any particular favorites?
I can tell you one thing. One of the things that was coming out of this was that if you did end up getting a virus, there was reports out there that ibuprofen was kind of a no-no.
Yeah.
But the World Health Organization has put out a report about that was kind of false information. That they're saying they have no studies revealing that ibuprofen would be any worse for you than anything else you take.
Yeah, they would say basically some of the stuff. I've been kind of emphasizing. Please make sure you get your information from reliable sources. Okay, I don't know if those of you who saw my Facebook post yesterday. Your sister's cousin's brother, whose neighbor's landscaper cuts the grass for a house 2 miles away, whose father's uncle and on works at the State Department. Okay, that is not a reliable source. And I've been forcing people that have been putting up general stuff that they've been kind of gleaning off articles and posts. Put up a link, please, because I'm sorry, but I can't really trust. There are certain people I can trust, but there are some people that I just don't know that I can trust in terms of their interpretations of things. How much of it is being, are you skewing this politically for whatever reason? So please give me, I'm not saying, I just basically say, please give me the link so that I can decide for myself whether I think this is reliable or not. And I think that's an important thing to do. I'm sorry, Joe, did I just interrupt you before? You were about to say something?
No, you didn't interrupt me, but I did see something I got an email, and I thought this might be interesting to everybody. You know how Governor Cuomo has been telling all of us to just stay more than 6 feet away from each other, avoid gatherings of sorts. He's tried to close down all non-essential businesses, such as, for example, bars. And we were getting off air about the fact there are no bars open. Oh, really? Some of my friends out on Eastern Long Island.
Oh, I was there yesterday. Go on, Joe.
Some of my friends who do stargazing, out in Eastern Long Island, for example, at the Custer Institute out in Southold or at Robert Moses State Park. They go there, they don't interact with each other as they normally would, but they would set up their telescopes and they'd be well spaced. But then at the end of the stargazing session, they go somewhere to get a bite to eat or grab something to eat. And this is from a friend of mine who says, stay in, this is serious, went to get takeout, and the bar was packed. The excuse was that they were waiting for takeout, but the bartender was providing refills to everybody who was at the bar. People didn't care. One was leaving for Florida on Monday on a plane to visit her 85-year-old mother. Airfare was $45, couldn't pass it up. Almost like there's nothing going on in terms of
was this on the north? Was this on the North Fork or on the South Fork? Because I actually I actually took a drive out to Greenport yesterday, just to drive, and the same thing. It's like a whole nother world on Eastern Long Island. Once you got past, say, east of Wading River and east of Riverhead, and bear in mind, by the way, that they had two deaths in Suffolk County were in the Riverhead area. But you go west of there and out toward the wineries. Now the wineries were pretty much closed, but they're closed because it's not the season. But I passed by an outdoor stand that was operating with people there. There were some restaurants had signs that they were open. Some said that they were only doing takeout. But yeah, I don't know. I think they maybe think that they were just kind of isolated enough out there that we don't have to really deal with this sort of stuff. But yeah, I can verify what your friend told you, Joe.
I mean, a packed bar, really? I mean, that's sad to hear. That whoever that was, I will not say any names, obviously, on this airwave, but that fool going to Florida may end up killing their mother if she brings the virus with her, and if she picked it up in the bar, he will indirectly infect everybody on the plane. So it's crazy. Think, people. This is the kind of mentality, I think, that's why we're hearing about what's going on in Italy. I've heard that the Italians, nothing against the Italians, I am Italian.
So am I.
They took the attitude like, oh, we are going to have some great fun here. Oh, we don't care about any virus. And now,
let's all smoke.
They're dying by the hundreds. Come on, people, make some smart sense out of yourselves here.
Yeah,
crazy.
My favorite so far was I have admittedly a few nut jobs on my Facebook page. This is one good thing about all of this, is that you really start to see who the nut jobs are. But someone took a picture of a railroad gas car, and a black railroad gas tank car, and obviously photoshopped COVID-19 in the upper corner of the railroad car, and the implication was that the railroad cars were coming into the New York area and Long Island, and then they were going to load all this COVID virus onto planes and start spraying all over the place. And I mean, I have to laugh because it's one of the upsides, Brian, I mentioned about all this in the last couple of weeks, that all the geoengineering people have basically disappeared, which has made me really happy. Okay.
Yeah.
And now they've been replaced by the COVID-19 conspiracy theorists. Seriously, people that do stuff like that, really, is your paranoia so up to the point that you can't function, that you have to, you're doing, you're spreading. I'm not saying you're orchestrating it, but you're taking stuff that you're being duped. Okay, the stuff is not, what you're putting up is not real. You're being duped. They're playing into your paranoia. Relax, calm down. Everybody's going to get through this.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I'd be interested to ask Brian, since he is commuting on weekends now into the heart of the coronavirus, the so-called epicenter of the coronavirus breakout, what it's like to go into a city that, the city that never sleeps, and is it really as empty and as deserted as what we have been told and what we have been shown on some of the broadcast stations?
Well, Joe, I'll give you my viewpoint on it. So last weekend I was in the city. I did drive in rather than take the train. And really, the city was so empty. The only person I came within 5 feet of was the guy that parked my car in the parking garage. Streets were empty. Rockefeller Center was empty, and the office building pretty much empty. This weekend, however, I am sitting at my office desk in my house. And so I am working from home now. I am set up here at home to do all the functions that I would do at the office in the city here from my house in Dutchess County. And so social distancing is now in full effect in almost every department.
By the way,
those
of you on the chat board, if you've got any questions, put them up. But we'll try to take as many as we can. Jeffrey has stepped away, so I think maybe he has to go on the air. So we'll see what happens when he comes back. Scott Briller hitting super chat. Thank you very much. Actually, you could wind up with a bit of a group Briller Jeopardy today.
I got the Briller Jeopardy question. I just have to go back and look it up.
Okay. Let's do a little bit of weather, and I'm going to bring up the NAM model. One of the things that I have been kind of focusing on, Brian, over the last couple of days is, of course, the desperation of snow lovers continues right up until the very end, and I kind of understand that. But one of the things that I noticed from the onset with this particular system coming up is that even though we have this cold high to the north, it just flies out of here, and I have not seen anything either yesterday or last night or on this morning's runs that indicates that it's going to be anything different. This cold high goes out, and that means that it's going to change to rain for most folks.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about the coastal cities from Washington D.C. to Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston, especially the northeastern cities, I mean, maybe some quick snow showers at the onset and then a quick change to rain. The interior folks, obviously, a little bit different. We have been tracking, a little over 4 million people under winter weather alerts from northeastern Pennsylvania into the Catskills, Adirondacks, parts of the Berkshires, and up into the Green and White Mountains. But outside of that, most of the cities, even such, if you look at Albany, New York, I mean, maybe 1 to 3 inches out of this. And I think, some of the biggest impacts could be from strong gusty winds up along the northern New England coastline. But this thing it's in and out. And for most of us, for the bigger cities, it's not a blockbuster by any means. I'll tell you that.
I agree 100% with what Brian said. In fact, while you were trying to set up this situation between myself and you and Jeff and Brian, killing time, I had said that if you had asked me a day or two ago how much snow I would have been getting up here in Putnam Valley, I might have actually said an inch or two. But in the last couple of days, it seems like there's less in terms of an emphasis on the cold air, more of an emphasis on moving the cold air out, bringing in the precipitation. It'll start certainly everywhere, even down in New York City, probably as wet snowflakes.
Yeah.
But it'll very quickly over to just plain rain. And I don't really see much of an accumulation where I am. Maybe up where Brian lives, he's a little bit more elevated than I, that he may get a slight bit of an accumulation. But I think you really have to go well north and west of the 84 corridor to see, let's say, more than an inch or two out of this. So it's a cheap thrill, but it might be the last thrill for a lot of snow lovers this winter season.
Definitely elevation driven. And it's the same areas that have gotten snow this winter in upstate New York, I-90 and points north and northeast and to a certain extent northwest. Those are the places that are going to see snow out of this. Maybe a little bit in northern Pennsylvania. Maybe the Catskills might actually do fairly well. They have winter storm watches up for Sullivan County and counties northward up through the Catskills. That makes sense. They've got winter storm warnings, watches up. I'm sorry if I said winter storm warnings for the Catskills. Winter storm watches for the Catskills. Winter storm watches for the Berkshires, for the mountains in southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire. That makes complete sense. But again, with the absence of any kind of blocking, it's how are you going to get cold air to hold in with this is beyond me. And again, there's nothing different here. Now, once that pulls out, guys, there looks like there's another low that comes along right behind. Another high builds up in eastern Canada. Another low comes in that tries to go underneath us, and I think that there's a little bit less in the way of cold air for this for late Tuesday night, Wednesday. So this is going to be mostly rain in most places, a cold rain. Although in some elevated areas in upstate New York, there might be some snow in the mix. But overall, the one behind it's going to have less cold air to work with.
And so one of the impacts from this that we're not thinking about as you combined all this coronavirus stuff with weather is that we're speaking about the mountains and them picking up snow, which could be a last hurrah for the ski resorts. Except that
Nobody can
they're
ski. They're
yeah,
closed. I know.
yeah.
I thought of that yesterday. I was in a way, in actually in a big way. I was really, from the onset, just thinking along the lines of, wouldn't it have been nice if this were a widespread snow event, if only to have something to distract ourselves, and also to kind of force people to, maybe force people a little bit to stay where they are. And yet, oddly enough, across the U.S. today, there's hardly any weather going on. It's really very quiet. No major storms around, a few minor inconveniences here and there. And by the way, this is by no means is this going to be any kind of major storm. I got the snowfall forecast, the digital forecast from the Weather Service for all the cities in the Northeast. I mean, this is a typical early spring snow event, and maybe a few places are going to wind up where there's elevation with 4, 5, or 6 inches, but we're not talking like 2 years ago with a foot and a half on Long Island. That would have been not, again, for me as a snow lover, I would have loved to have seen it, but just not happening.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes, please.
I just want to, and you know what, Joe? Even if in New York City proper tomorrow morning there is snow for 10 minutes before it changes over completely to rain, big wet snowflakes, you just know that somebody is going to be out there with either a camera or a cell phone, and that view is going to probably lead off the noon news or the 6 o'clock night saying, guess what? It was snowing here. I mean, it won't amount to anything, but it's something maybe to take away from all of this stuff on COVID-19, something different. And I'll tell you what, we could use right now a good old-fashioned late season snowstorm, if for nothing else, to take everybody's mind off of what is going on in our area and around the world.
And speaking of things to take your mind off of stuff, Joe, I know as a space lover as you are, you'll get a kick out of this. So we've been looking for different ways to keep the kids engaged with school activities and those kinds of things while they're home. And my kids love space. And so what we did last night, since it was a nice clear night, is we went outside and we had the app where you can look up at the sky and kind of see what you're seeing through the phone. And then the app starts beeping at me saying, you're about to get an ISS, International Space Station, flyover. And so sure as heck, we look up and we see it coming. And for the next 5 or 6 minutes, we watch it go right over us and into the distance. And not only the kids, but myself, just ecstatic, because there's always been times where I thought I've seen it, but I never knew for sure. But this time, like, the app's telling me this is it. And there it goes right over us. And we're yelling and screaming and waving at it. And it was pretty cool.
Hey, Joe. Joe, I'm sorry. Hey,
yeah.
Joe, I'm sorry. I think you might have shut your camera off.
I did?
I think so.
I still see him.
You see him?
I don't see him on your feed, but I see him on my phone.
My camera's on, Joe.
All right, hang on 1 second. I must have done something. All right, keep going, keep talking.
Can you hear me at least?
I hear you fine. I'm just trying to find you.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was going to say is that the people who are on board the International Space Station are probably the only ones who have nothing to fear from the coronavirus. They have been circling the Earth at an altitude of about 250 miles above the Earth, looking down on all of us, not having to worry. And for them, it's just business as usual in the confines of the space station. But I guess I don't know, I wouldn't use the term amused, but they probably are saying to themselves, boy, this is really a different situation, what's going on down there right now, as opposed to what's been going on up here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And then, the other interesting debate that's been going on, because I keep seeing studies coming out, they're arguing for it, they're arguing against it, what type of impact heat and humidity might have on coronavirus. And I noticed AccuWeather this morning had a new story up on their page of a study that had just come out saying that they do think it has some impact, not necessarily killing it, but they said it had impact on lessening its ability to spread. So I found that kind of interesting.
Well, the person who we're hoping to have on tomorrow night here on the Joe and Joe show at 7 o'clock is Bill Kirk, who is the proprietor and manager and owner of Weather Trends 360. And he has a website that deals with future forecasts as far as down as a year in advance and how it affects certain retailers, for example, on his dashboard. And he always updates the dashboard on Monday. So you could still see this because this story is still on the weathertrends360.com dashboard, is what you just mentioned, Brian, what AccuWeather has just put up, how the weather and how temperatures globally may have an influence in either inflating or deflating the numbers of the coronavirus worldwide. And that's really when I read that article, that's when I said to Joe about a week ago, I said, maybe we ought to bring this gentleman online and have him chat, and talk about, among other things, his company, but also his studies into this. And so that's what we're going to have tomorrow night. He bills himself, as I mentioned, as the real Captain Kirk, because he was captain, I believe, in the Army during the Gulf War crisis back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Captain Bill Kirk, as opposed to William Shatner, who is playing the pretend Captain Kirk on Star Trek.
Hey Joe, do me a favor. Let's try this. Can you turn off your mic? I'm sorry, turn off your camera and turn it back on again.
I will do that.
Let me see if. Oh, I just got you back, and now you're gone again.
How's that?
Now you're there. Okay, great. All right, so we're back to a 3 box. I was beginning to feel a little, lost without having your face up there. Has anybody? I mean, I occasionally have been reading about the fact, this whole thing about whether this, once the warmer temperatures get here, this should, the virus should kind of calm down somewhat. And yet, one of the things that I think that stands out in all of this is the fact that since this is so new, I mean, we're really kind of taking everything a day at a time. So, we're all picking things here and there with regards to, well, maybe this will help and maybe that'll help. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have seen other articles regarding that.
Well, I just wanted to cut in for 1 second, guys. Unfortunately, I do have to cut and run at this point. I got some things I got to take care of on the business side here, but let's do it again soon.
Yeah, right? Sure, Brian. Thanks for being. I appreciate your patience. Now that I got through the first doing this the first time, it'll be a lot less messy the next time around.
Yeah. This was very cool. So I appreciate you guys having me. I appreciate everybody watching. I got it up here on YouTube. We're getting a ton of comments. So appreciate everybody, and we'll see you on social media.
Okay, great. Joe, hit your camera. I just lost you again. So turn your camera off and turn it. There you go. All right, now you're back. All right, so let me put myself. We'll go back to a 2 box. Jeffrey had to leave us because he also, as I mentioned earlier, was doing his. He's on shift, working
Right.
from home, so he had to cut out. Was waiting for the governor to finish his press conference. So, look, the basic premise here, weather-wise, is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's nothing new here. There are severe weather risks this week that I just want to point out really fast, and then we'll do a little Briller Jeopardy, and I'll run through. In the meantime, Joe, just kind of run through the chat board to see if there's any questions that need to be addressed. But with respect to severe weather around the country, it's quiet today, and in fact, it's a little unusual because the one spot that is actually at a marginal risk for severe weather is Southern California, which you don't really see too often, but right down, including Los Angeles, it looks like, if I'm guessing my geography, and up to, it's actually running just about between LA and San Francisco in that coastal stretch there where there's a marginal risk of severe weather. Now, over the next few days, with these weather systems, the first weather system here in the east for tomorrow is not going to do very much. There's severe weather risk for tomorrow in Oklahoma, Kansas, northern and western Arkansas. And then on day 3, we have a severe risk area that's going to push eastward into much of Tennessee, northern Alabama, and northern Mississippi, and southern Kentucky. Slight risk for severe weather. And on days 4 to 8, you have to check out days 4 to 8. When you see the Storm Prediction Center doing stuff in this time frame, it's usually a indicator that it's going to be a serious severe weather outbreak. And at least for today, we're seeing that either predictability is too low or probability is too low over the day 4 to 8 time frame. Also, I want to put up WPC's, the Weather Prediction Center's 7-day rainfall forecast, which is actually pretty bullish for rainfall, total liquid precip, I should say, for much of southern and central New England, down across the New York City area, north and south to Philadelphia, down to Washington, D.C. It looks like a pretty wide stretch of 1.5 to 3 inches worth of rain forecast the next 7 days. And also for parts of northernmost Georgia, southern Tennessee, southeastern Tennessee, northeastern Alabama, in an area of some hefty rains. And some rains also down on the left coast, though not as widespread or as heavy as what you're seeing in the east. And finally, well, before I come back to you, Mr. Rayo, I want to just bring up WPC's probability. I'm going to use the probability of at least 2 inches of snow, and you can see it here. This is for this weather system that's impacting on Monday. And WPC has been gradually shifting the area a little bit further to the north over the last day and a half. That trend continued this morning in their forecast. And if we do a probability of at least 4, you see it's confined to the Catskills, straight up into upstate New York, then kind of a gap in between in the valleys in between the mountains west of 87, and then when you get into the Berkshires and the White Mountains of Vermont and so on, where the probability of at least 4 inches goes up. So that all pretty much lines up fairly well with the forecast that I put up. I did a little bit of an adjustment to it, but nothing major, other than to compensate for my numbers being a little bit too low in New England. But I brought those up. And Patreon members, you can see that map. It's also up on the website for those of you who are interested. So now we could do a little Briller Jeopardy here.
All right. Well, I have actually he calls it double Jeopardy question for Mr. Cioffi on Sunday morning.
All right. So let's do this.
All right. You ready for the question?
Ready for the question.
Okay. Since you were one time a distinguished broadcast meteorologist in the parishes and state of Louisiana.
Yes, I did work there. Yes, many moons ago.
Many moons ago. What was the last time in New Orleans? Question. What was the greatest snowstorm ever in New Orleans?
In New Orleans, you know what? Oh God, it's been so.
I'll give you a hint. You weren't around when it happened.
No, I figured as much, and I'm trying more to remember the number in terms of inches. I want to say it's like 6 or 8 inches, something like that.
Okay.
So of those two numbers, I'll go with the 8 because that was the first number that came to my mind. 8.
You're almost right on the nose, Joe. 8.2 inches, believe it or not.
Okay, so now it was before I was born. So I was born in 59. So I know it probably goes back. You know what? I remember seeing, many years ago, and on the occasions in the last 10 or 15 years, there have been a few occasions in the last 10, 15 years that it snows in New Orleans. But I couldn't, I'm going to say sometime in the 1930s.
It was probably, well, no, that's a little bit further back than that.
Really?
It was probably when they were saying that steam engines were going to ruin the climate. February 14th and 15th, so it was Valentine's Day, actually. They celebrated Valentine's Day back then.
18 something?
1895.
Wow. That's even a bit before my time. Although
Yes.
I will tell you this, in the world of social media, the way it is now, okay, in New Orleans, and you've seen my winter storm warning preparedness posts that I do
Right.
every year in levity. That my basic rule of thumb is that for every when in preparation for winter storms, for every 1 inch of snow, that corresponds to one bottle of wine. And when you have a winter storm watch up, is you make sure you go out and you, for every range forecast, you buy a bottle of wine. And when the warnings go up, you start drinking that wine.
Good.
Okay. Uh, the thing is, in New Orleans, that's probably what happens. you know, there's a liquor run and a party run. I mean, this is just, and I say this in a very loving way because, having lived in New Orleans, it's like no other place that you've been to. That in terms of actually when you're living there and you become part of the day-to-day life, it's a different approach to things. It's very relaxed. It's very laid back, and it is any excuse to have a get together and to have a party. That's New Orleans, and I'm unfortunately in a situation like what we have here with the coronavirus, where everybody's being told to kind of stay social distancing and all the rest of it. This really goes against the grain of the way of life down in Southeast Louisiana. So I'm thinking those folks would be having a much tougher time. I don't know if they've gone to that the way we have here in New York and New Jersey and in a few other states. I don't think Louisiana has gone into that, sort of serious, lockdown type of mode. But for the folks there, it'd be difficult because it's a very much a social place and very much a happy place. So I wish my former homemates well. Will in getting through all this.
They did fairly well with the Jeopardy question, I guess.
Yeah, I wasn't too shabby.
Speaking of snow,
Yeah.
and I mentioned this on my Facebook page yesterday, and also I emailed a bunch of people yesterday as to get their opinion. Trying to think out of the box to do something different. Brian, for example, mentioned he took his kids out last night to do some stargazing, and I'm thinking that since I am an author of sorts, I've written a couple of children's books that both my sister and my daughter suggested to me just a few days ago. Said, Dad, why don't you read your book on your YouTube channel? Make an announcement and maybe get the kids all around the computer monitor, and you could read a book. And so I'm going to probably later this week, after I do enough promotion for it, I'm going to read this. This is my the cool story behind snow book,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's not really a story book. It is more of a book about explaining to kids, and also um, adults too might find this interesting as to what causes snow. Just the basics about weather and meteorology. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to read directly from the book, and I'll look on the chat board. The funny thing is, this show that I'm considering doing is basically for children, but in order to see the chat board, I'm going to have to click on the box that says "not for children," because if I pick for children, for some reason I
Yeah,
don't see
you
it.
won't have it.
But if I put not for children, this way, if there are any kids out there or any parents who want to ask me a question about, what causes snow, or whatever, I'll be happy to do that. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, it'll be a little different than what I normally do on social media, but again, it's thinking out of the box. It's something different, as we all are trying to think of something
Sure.
different to amuse and
Sure.
entertain
So,
our
and and
viewing
s-
audience.
and speaking of something different, here's something different. Timothy Veltman and Scott Briller, thanks for hitting super chat. I mentioned it before, just want to mention it again. Timothy Veltman, thank you for hitting super chat today. And Timothy had a great idea, and I'm gonna do it right now. So for those of you who are on, we set up this nonstop chat room on Discord. Okay, so if you download the Discord app, and I've been putting up the link from time to time, you can join this. And then we've got some different categories that we've set up. And I'm really liking this. This is really a cool thing to have. So if you're a regular on this board, I think you're going to want to be on the Discord chat. And I'll put the link up on our chat board in a moment. But there's one section in here, Joe, that Timothy set up, which is called "Make Your Call," and this allows anybody that's on the chat to kind of draw their own snow forecast map and come up with their prediction. And I've got Timothy's snow forecast map. It's a little hard to see because I can't seem to get this to zoom. But let me just bring it up as best I can. So he has, it's on his map, the lightest blue is an inch. The black line is, where a trace is. The 2-inch line in purple, and then he's got 4 and 5 inches drawn in those clusters there. It looks like one area in the Catskills, one in the Berkshires, and one north and west of Albany, up north of I-90. So that's Timothy Veltman's prediction. So let me just, let's go back now. I'm going to see if I can find anybody else, if anyone else has made a call. Hang on a second. I made my call. This was my original call yesterday, but I'm going to just bring up my call here. So give me 1 second, Joe. I will do that. And this is my new final call snow forecast map here. And, you, of course, can always tell me what you think. I always value your opinion. So I basically went with a trace 2 and 4 inch lines. So I have a trace running from about just north of Reading and Allentown across to Passaic County to Putnam, Westchester, north and east up to just west of Boston. Now, I'm allowing for the possibility, it could start off as some wet snow briefly south of there, but I was thinking maybe in terms of where you start to see a little bit of accumulation on grassy surfaces. That's where I put the trace line. And I've got the 2-inch line right on the New Jersey PA border near Port Jervis, going northeast from there. And then I've got a 4-inch area up for the Catskills, points north, and also for the Berkshires. So this is my final call here. So we'll see whether that works out or not.
I think I'm going to wait until this afternoon. The new run is coming out as we speak now, and I'll look at it and probably put a map up. Mine is not quite as colorful as yours or Timothy, but it probably is going to be along the same lines. That we'll probably all start off with some big slushy flakes of wet snow, but you really have to go north and west, and especially you have to go into the higher elevations if you're hoping to see any kind of an accumulation of consequence.
Okay, so let me just I'm going to put the Discord link up here, so for everybody to have. Why is it doing this? Hang on a second. So here's the disc. For those of you who don't have it, here is we'll put it up on the chat for you. Here is the Discord link. And if you're not seeing it for whatever reason, you guys can just message me or email me, and I'll be more than happy to share the link up. It's up on Patreon for Patreon members, and I've also put it up for the Facebook supporters who are interested in joining this. So that was an interesting hour. Now at least we know we can do the 3-box, so we're all set tomorrow for Captain Kirk to come on,
Right.
which is good. And Izzy D wants to know: is there any chance it starts as snowflakes in Lakewood? In Lakewood, New Jersey. There's a chance. Joe, I think that there could be a little bit of a burst in areas, central New Jersey northward, right at the very beginning. You mentioned that earlier today, or earlier in the live stream, that you thought there was a fair chance that we probably could see a quick burst of snow at the very start.
Yeah. Like I said, and the great thing about snow at this time of the year, and especially in this type of scenario, is that we'll probably start off with the big dime and quarter-size snowflakes. And for a while, if it comes down hard enough, even for a few minutes, it may actually look like, I won't say a blizzard, but it'll be very picturesque. Oh, look at the snow! But very quickly, as we progress through the minutes and hours, it's going to go right over to rain, and just going to be I think in the afternoon tomorrow for most places, just a dull, dank, dreary, raw, and rather chilly start to the week on Monday.
Quincy McCoy mentions that there is a YouTube video. There's like a 15-second, like a 3-second clip of me doing a news tease. That's on my YouTube channel. If you want to go check it out, I was obviously a lot younger then. It was 34 years ago, and my hair was a slightly different color than it is now. Let's just leave it that way. The Southern Sun did a very good job of bleaching my hair quite a bit.
Yes.
But yeah, it is there. So thanks for reminding me. I haven't. It does bring New Orleans always brings back good memories for me.
Yeah, you're doing the blizzard of '96 is up there. Um,
Yes.
when you did that go around at News 12,
Yeah,
and
those were fun times. I've seen it all. I really have. I've
yeah,
seen it all. All right, so we'll set up for tomorrow. Thanks everybody for being here today. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Please, again, just a reminder: make sure whatever you're using for sources, make sure they're reliable. You don't. I wish I could remember. You and I are both good with lines from I Love Lucy. This is where in the Tennessee Ernie Ford episode. Okay, the first when he comes to New York, Lucy is telling Ricky that who Ernie Ford is, being that her mother's friends, cousins, it's like a rather long line that she goes at. And that's what I've been getting at when I've been saying, when you start to see these things where you see your mother's friends, cousins, landscaper who also cuts grass for and on is a friend with somebody at the State Department or wherever. That is not a reliable piece of information.
right.
If you see people putting up stories, ask them to put or paraphrasing what they're seeing in stories. Ask them very simply. Put up a link, okay? And this way you can at least read the story, decide for yourself whether it's credible, and come to the conclusions that you need to come to. Okay, so that's like my two pieces of advice. All right,
If
that's
it's not
all.
a if it's not a reliable source, we can also use another Tennessee Ernie Ford quote from that I Love Lucy series. Well, as the whale said to Jonah,
I
I ain't a
ate a
swallow.
swallow in that. Oh, and one other thing I should mention as well. Two other things. Um, One of the things that's going on now with all of this is, and it's really disgusting, but I'm getting emails, obvious spam emails from people that are trying to fish for my account information, telling me that my bank account has been locked, telling me that my iPhone is locked. I don't have an iPhone. If they tell me my bank account is locked, they're telling me from a bank that I don't do business in. But these are emails that are also possibly going, and text messages too. These are things that also might be going to an older person, someone who maybe is not tech savvy,
Right.
an elderly person who might see that and say, hey, I got this message here that says I can't get into my bank account. We have this lockdown. What if I need cash? And then they inadvertently wind up going on those those sites and giving out their personal information. So be sure to if you have elderly relatives, this might be a good time to kind of pick up the phone and let them know that hey, if you're getting, because I tell my mom this all the time, and she's savvy now, so she knows. I tell my mom all the time these emails that your bank account is all locked up, and this, your iPhone is locked, or the phone calls that you get, they're all fake and they're all criminal. These people really, I hope they, when that stuff happens like that, I really think I really pray that there is a special hot place in hell for people like that. I remember seriously, Joe. I don't, you know me. I'm a nice guy. I'm fairly forgiving, but with this stuff, I'm not. And people who do that sort of stuff, I really hope when your day comes that you burn in hell. Burn!
On that happy note,
Yes. On that happy note, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
we will be here.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.